We need to talk about Cursor, the new AI code editor everyone's been freaking out about. Before we do that, I'm going to go out of my way to disclose the fact that I am an investor in Cursor. I found them interesting enough early on to throw some money their way, but I did not actually like using it, and I churned from the product twice. I was much more a fan of Supermaven, which is a Copilot alternative in VS Code that I admittedly also invested in, and it's really, really fast. But I want to give this an honest go, and I did, and the results have surprised me. I'm actually finding myself enjoying Cursor quite a lot. That said, they have no idea I'm making this video. They've given me no input whatsoever. They've just given me a couple hints about new things coming up in the past, and I've barely talked to them since. This video is not sponsored in any way by Cursor, but it does have a sponsor. So let's cut to them really quick.
Oh, fam, there we go. Get status.
Yo, what you working on?
Sorry, I didn't see you there. I was actually watching the front-end master's course that Primogen did on Git. It's been really helpful so far.
Wait, you paid for a course? Don't those cost like thousands of dollars?
Do I look like I have thousands to spend on a course? I write JavaScript for a living. It's only $400 a year, and you get over 200 courses from industry veterans like Primogen, Lydia Hall, Jason Langsdorff, Mishko Heap.
Okay, I get it.
You better get it. It's actually $100 off until Wednesday, so if you check out soon, you'll only have to spend $300 on this massive set of courses. Frontendmasters.com. Check it out and tell them I sent you.
Okay, back to Cursor. I want to give a demo of the experience I had that made me go from iffy to actually quite in love with Cursor. So here I have some numbers that I was dumping, because again, what I was trying to compare was my premium viewership to my non-premium viewership and what revenue looked like from those two different targets. So when I was typing, I typed out premium watch hours, non-premium watch hours. I started typing total, and it auto-completed with the right answer. That's when I was like, okay, what the fuck? It just did math correctly. Then I decided to push it a little bit. Here I have my premium to non-premium watch hours split, and I have my ad revenue versus my premium revenue. So if I combine these numbers together, I should be able to get not only my total revenue, but compare percentages. So first we're going to do total revenue. Cool. Now I want percentages at the end. I want little parentheses at the end. So add the percentages after the numbers. What the fuck? How is that easy? I had to swap the order there because that was hard to read. But here we can see that my non-premium watch hours make up 63% of my viewership, but ad rev makes up about 70%. So I make more money from people watching ads than the premium viewers, because the premium viewers are 36% of my time, but only 30% of the revenue. But the fact that I could do that with autocomplete without having to think it through at all kind of broke my brain, because it was my understanding that the things AI are bad at in general are math and really specific integration stuff, but it figured this out correctly. And that's when I decided to give it a bit more honest a shot, specifically when the Command Shift K thing worked that well, and I could just select, do that, and say, make this change, and it worked. That was the like, oh shit, this might be useful to me moment. When I was working on Pick Thing, I put a bunch of time trying to figure out the difference between these two different models to figure out which one made more or less sense. A lot of the time was spent doing number crunching. So I had Worker KV as one of my storage solutions, R2 as a storage solution, an average value for image, and then the Worker KV cost per image, as well as the R2 cost per image. And then I added the cost per image for these different sources for the Model 1 versus Model 2. And then I was able to create these cost values. Let's say I want to change it. Let's say I realized I was wrong here, or the image size is off. Let's change it. So make the example image size 4 megabytes instead. Now it changes all of the costs all the way through and gets me the correct costs for every example. I thought that was really cool. I thought that was awesome that I could just tell it to make this one quick change for me and get all of my data updated. And that was when I started falling in love. Thus far, I have not had it spit out incorrect numbers. It is important to check those things when you do things like this. The only mistakes I've seen it make so far are that it was referencing the wrong numbers when I told it to make a change. Like I told it to honor the numbers that I set for Worker KV and R2, but it was using the ones here and it was updating them up there. But it's usually visible when it's changing the wrong source. But I have been very impressed with my experience with all that. Where things got much cooler was when I was actually working on building this app with Cloudflare. So I'm going to actually do something different. We're going to init a new project with Cloudflare. Wrangler init. We'll call this cursor CF demo. We'll do the hello world starter. Let's hop into here and get some actual work done. So the issue I was running into when I was using workers previously that they ended up helping with a lot was dealing with cores. So let's fix it. Make this handle cores from all origins. Is this a lot of code? Yes, but this is also all of the necessary code to handle cores. Do you know how great that is? To not have to go spend a bunch of time on Google figuring out what the expected way to do this is in Cloudflare, just to realize the expected way is to handle the request method of options manually yourself and then append the header always to every response. It was so nice. It was really convenient to have this handle those types of things for me, or all my weird onboarding questions. Admittedly, I did spend a lot of time inside of Claude directly as well, asking it questions, getting snippets, doing back and forth there. But having something in my editor like this that I can just tell it, hey, fix this, and it does, that's been really nice. And a lot of those types of busy work things, like I don't want to go plug the 15 places in that this has to be. It's so convenient. I've been really impressed with that. The autocomplete isn't quite as fast as I am used to from SuperMaven, and I do miss that. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But there's lots of other little things that this does well. Let me find a real project to showcase here. The great example is tests, where if you change the formatting of some testing stuff, it will be very smart about guiding you with the little tab autocomplete stuff as you make changes elsewhere. So I changed this from images to files. Tab to jump. See that at the bottom there? It brings me other places of things I might want to change. I can just press tab for it to keep doing it. And there it made the changes correctly. I don't think it finished it up here. Oh, no, it did. Yeah. The tab complete just carried me through all of that. That's the thing that VS Code and Copilot can't do, is new UI where it's proposing a thing that moves you around the editor. And I've actually found it quite nice. So if I change this to files in just a moment, it was smart enough to do that one, but it didn't do the next one because I did multi-select. This is the thing with AI. It's not always going to do the exact same thing. More often than not, it can figure out what you're trying to do, and it can be pretty smart about it. I thought it was nice, and I have been surprised at how useful these types of little things have been in making your life easier as you're auto-completing and making changes to code. It does make it a little easier to commit code that you didn't know you wrote, and to credit Primogen and all the others who have been saying this, but he was really the one to push it initially. It is the biggest problem with the AI code tools is it's easy to forget if you actually wrote the code or not, or where it came from, and suddenly you're committing much more code than you're used to. It's also what I hate about tools that push code gen really hard. It's why things like Rails and Laravel have been annoying for me, is tools that expect you to just code gen all the complexity away are just as bad. At least, at the very least, when I'm using these AI tools like Cursor, I'm seeing it in my editor and I'm approving every line along the way. I'm also obsessive when I'm doing Git stuff, where I'll git add-p and manually accept or decline every change as I go. But we haven't even gotten to the most fun parts yet. I'll admit, the thing I'm about to show, I've used a lot less, and it has not been as successful for me. But when it works, oh man, when it works, it's really nice. So here's what we're gonna do. I have this piece here that is the paginated get images, and the pagination is admittedly a bit of a mess. I'm relying on like hard-coded numbers for this to work. So I'm gonna try something. I don't even know if this is going to work or not. Update the pagination code to check server side if more pages exist. Also change the default count to return more images. I spelled that wrong. I just used the Command Shift K feature, and this one will hop between different files and make changes in them. Apparently, I had already removed the limit, which makes sense. I think I did that right before launch because I realized that the limit I had was roughly the same as the limit that was set, so it made no sense to have the pagination anymore. But here they added a limit with the default value of 50. And in the get images with tags function, we updated the default limit to be 50. We now fetch limit +1 items from the database. We return the has next page, and we slice items there. We can look at the different files to see what it changed. So in images.ts, here is what it's doing. In schema.ts, it shouldn't have to make any changes here. I'm going to accept it and see what the diff is. Let's take a look. If it will let me close it. Nope, the composer is stuck open. That's great. Love that for me. Cool. I command R and let me close it. Nice. It doesn't look like it actually changed anything in here, did it? I don't think it changed anything here. Yeah, it just told me things happened in that file. I didn't change them. So now there's an optional limit, and we're still not even using it, are we? Get image with tags. We're not. Cool. It bombed hard for that one. As I said, it's not always reliable. It got confused because it didn't know how that worked. Let's give it an easier one. Let's tell it to add a new query. Okay, so this grabs an image as well as the copy events, which keeps track of how often it has been copied. Let's add a get images with tags function. Actually, I don't want images with tags. We'll tell it to change it to only get one image. Use the image ID. Make sure you still get all the tags. And what's really cool here is I'm using Drizzle, which is admittedly not the most popular ORM, but it's smart enough to use it correct more often than not. I'm curious what it's mad about here. If I get rid of the JSON group here, will it shut up? Read only table, property underscores incompatible. Bring back the tag ID. It's still smart enough to autocomplete that. From schema uploaded image, left join. So it's doing the join for me, where combining all that, group by, get, if no error or no result, throw, otherwise return. It's pretty smart about these things. And it's nice to have, since I have all my DB stuff in this one file, it's relatively smart about using like the syntax, the definitions, and the things that already exist here. And as long as you're actually testing the code you wrote to make sure the output is correct, it's been pretty nice. I've been surprised at how much I've been relying on this, especially for onboarding onto new things. I just filmed a video earlier where I was fighting PHP and Laravel hard, trying to get file uploads working. I had a bunch of people in chat making a bunch of suggestions. I tried almost all of them with no luck. Eventually, I can even show you guys what I did. Let me go to Laravel first try. I didn't commit the broken state, but what I ended up doing that ended up working is I went to my file controller. I just literally command K'd and said, the file uploads aren't working. Please fix. And it did it first try. That's what I've been impressed with here. It's not that this tool is changing the way I dev forever. It's not that it's writing all this code I'm not capable of writing. It's not that it's smarter than me or any of that shit. It's that it's making the tedious stuff way less tedious. And the likelihood I have to hop to the docs to fix a problem has gone down quite a bit. The way I'm starting to see these tools isn't so much as an alternative to writing code, rather an alternative to having to go through the docs and Stack Overflow and those other things, with honestly roughly the same level of success. The amount of times I've went to Stack Overflow, copy pasted the top upvoted answer that seemed totally correct, and it just didn't work is hilarious. And here, at least it works more often than it does there. Like, okay, roughly the same, I would say. As for the people asking, like, what's the model? Great question. All of them. By default, Cursor uses a ton of different models. I don't know how it chooses which one it's using where, but it's using a lot of them. And I've been impressed overall. It's been solid. It's not just a Cloud wrapper. It's a Cloud wrapper, a GPT-4 wrapper, 3.5, and all these other things. I tried turning them all off for a bit because I wanted to like only have the fast ones, but I turned them all back on because it was the default and I trust them to figure out what to use where. It would be nice if the inline autocomplete was as fast as it is in SuperMaven. I would love to have SuperMaven be a model in here for that, but it's fine. Do I still miss SuperMaven? Yes, the autocomplete speeds were unbeaten, and this is still just not there. But overall, the user experience win is enough that I've come around to the fact that they forked VS Code, which was honestly, in my opinion, the big scary thing. Like, why would you not just make a VS Code extension? The reality is that you can't do a lot of the cool things this does. A lot of the UI that exists here cannot be created as an extension in VS Code. You might think that that sounds absurd, and I'm going to cite something interesting here. There is a VS Code plugin that I would consider at this point essential to most TypeScript devs that turns this mess that you're probably all used to seeing with your type errors into this, which is actually readable. So when you see something like this, the immediate reasonable reaction somebody would have is, oh, it's cool that VS Code extensions let you extend things like that. Do you guys want to know how this works? This isn't some little embedded HTML view that they have customized like that. This is an SVG. This is embedded as an icon coming from the extension because that was the only way VS Code will allow them to embed that much data in this type of UI. On top of that, when you scroll down with one of these type errors, you get this underneath. I can go make one of these quick to show because I'm certain I have it installed. I'll do something fake. So here, I get my fancy type error here, but above it, I'm still getting the nonsense. Because again, it's doing this by rendering an icon underneath, which is hilarious, but at least I get an error that's actually readable. But the fact that you have to do that in order to make VS Code behave is hilarious. And it also means it can't be interactive. You can't build interactions into this. All you can do is have quick links to things based on the existing VS Code parameters that an extension has access to. You're very, very limited to the ways you can add info here in the UI structures you can have with it. That I know for a fact. There's a problem a lot of devs are having. I've talked to the SuperMaven team. I've talked to other teams. The limitations of how VS Code extensions expect you to operate, where they're expected to almost run behind the scenes, not as a core part of the UI, is very painful. They let you have side panels that can do all sorts of crazy cool stuff, but the side panel doesn't solve the problem of integrating deeply into the editor. The idea of having a command K like this that embeds in the actual editor there, you can't do that with a VS Code extension. That's why they forked. And while on one hand, maintaining a fork of something that big sucks, on the other hand, is one of the most promising opportunities to actually meaningfully improve the user experience we have in VS Code when using these new tools. Right now, it is closed source. I have no reason to believe they would change it. It would be cool if they did. At the very least, made these extensions more accessible to other developers for other things. Doesn't necessarily fit their business model, though. That all said, there's nothing stopping someone else from forking VS Code and making these things more extensible. I'm actually surprised that there isn't a fork that has expanded on what things people can do to VS Code, because I think that would get some traction. It would be pretty cool if someone went in that direction, because I'd love to see a more extensible version of VS Code. It's still an incredible editor, and it's gotten us so far, but I would love a future where you didn't have to fork the entirety of it to make the types of features that Cursor is trying to add right now. There's a great article that I'm excited to cover in the near future, The Unintended Consequences of Open Source, that goes in depth on the 1% of the VS Code that is Cursor's, to talk about the consequences of open sourcing your projects, meaning someone else can be the one to go make the money on it. I'm excited to read this one. Should be really fun. Keep an eye out for that. Chatlink's something cool that I'm actually pretty hyped about. Code Frying Pan is another tech creator in the space. It's actually working on almost exactly what I just described, an open source VS Code fork that handles all of these types of things better. Because again, VS Code doesn't have the right primitives built in. So they built them themselves as an open source solution. This is actually pretty hype. I'm excited to see this. I might give this a shot too. Let me know in the comments if you think I should give this a real go. Yeah, that's dope. It's really cool to see people building this in an open source way that theoretically anyone could use. Fuck yeah. I like that a lot. I think that's all I have to say about Cursor for now, though. So until next time, peace, nerds.